Everybody likes going to the movies, grab a little popcorn, maybe some candy, then just recline that seat and settle in. Maybe you like comedies, or maybe you're a freak like Gutfeld who's into horror films. But ask any movie buff what they think the greatest flick of all time is, and you're sure to hear The Godfather brought up plenty of times. It's a classic that explores one side of the Italian immigrant story of America and contains some of the most famous lines in movie history.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Fredo, you're my older brother, and I love you. But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again.
Family's a major theme of the movie, and one of the best scenes is when we're introduced to the 5 families of New York.
And also the other heads of the 5 families, New York, New Jersey. Carmine Cuneo from the Bronx and Brooklyn.
Those crime leaders were just fictional characters, but they represented something real. No, not the actual 5 crime families of New York. That gang represents the 5 families of the Democrat Party. For the past 2 decades, these clans have used their power and influence in the halls of Washington to enrich themselves and their offspring. Last night, we explored the suspect stock trades made by Nancy Pelosi and her husband, Paul. But the family's suspicious business ties don't just stop there. You see, the apple doesn't fall that far from the tree when it comes to Paul Pelosi Jr., the 52-year-old son of the Speaker of the House. The younger Pelosi has reportedly been linked to at least 5 business entities under investigation by authorities for alleged fraud. With reports going on to say Paul Pelosi Jr. was hired by several firms that were subject to both federal and state probes, and meanwhile has connections to a host of fraudsters, rule breakers, and convicted criminals, although he has never been charged himself. Among the companies Pelosi Jr. was involved in was a database marketing company called InfoUSA, which, quote, was investigated by the Iowa Attorney General's office several years earlier for allegedly selling consumer data to fraudsters. That company was founded by Vin Gupta, a major donor to Bill Clinton, who had been probed by the SEC for allegedly misusing company funds to fly Bill and crooked Hillary around on private jets. But doesn't just stop there for Junior Pelosi or Little Paulie P, PP Jr. You know, these guys all have nicknames. According to the New York Post, in 2009, he co-founded Natural Blue Resources, an investment company that the SEC alleged was run by convicted fraudsters. He was also tangled up in questionable companies in 2013 and 2014, and later tied to a cryptocurrency scam in 2015. Quite a run. But while Paul Jr. has been connected to plenty of suspect businesses, he has never faced the same consequences as his partners. I wonder why. I guess when your mother is a leader of the Democratic Party, you have a get-out-of-jail-free card. And unfortunately, it's not just the House of Representatives where family circles are influencing decisions at the highest levels. Just on the other side of the U.S. Capitol, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has his own family drama. Last week, a Senate panel approved an antitrust bill restricting big tech platforms. The legislation would stop Amazon, Google, and others from favoring their own products over competitors. Now, this legislation got worked hard in the back room by lobbyists, by the way. Which lobbyists in particular? We'll get to that in a second. While this bill is moved through the Judiciary Committee, it has yet to get a vote on the Senate floor. You know who's in charge of bringing this bill to the floor? Well, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. And would Chuck have any reason to delay this bill? Well, maybe so. You see, Chuck's daughter, Jessica, is a registered lobbyist at Amazon, according to New York State records. So Chuck and his daughter are working every side of the Amazon bill. And Chuck's son-in-law, Michael Shapiro, worked at Google's Sidewalk Labs from 2017 to 2019. That's according to his LinkedIn profile. And if that wasn't enough to raise some red flags, Schumer's other daughter, Allison, also works at Facebook. She's in marketing. Sounds an awful lot like the man in charge of advancing big tech antitrust legislation in the Senate has a huge family interest in the process. Now, only a moron wouldn't see that conflict. And it's not just the Democrat leaders of Congress who are making family moves. In the White House, Papa Joe's done everything he can to take the stink off his son Hunter's fishy business deals. Hunter's connection with Ukraine, well documented here on Fox. We discussed last night how Hunter's deals netted the Biden family $30 million from Chinese profiteers linked to communist spies. And since his son was making money off the communist country, it's no surprise Joe Biden was so quick to talk down the China threat just a couple years back.
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They can't even figure out how to deal with the fact that they have this great division between the China Sea and the mountains in the east, in the west. They can't figure out how they're going to deal with the corruption that exists within the system. They're not bad folks, but guess what? They're not competition for us.
Not to mention the fact that Biden completely swept the lab leak under the rug. And we never found out where that diamond went, the diamond that Chinese tycoon gave Hunter. That got swept away, too. So while Hunter was stacking bills, courtesy of America's biggest enemy, he was roping in another prominent Democrat family into his schemes. Hunter's business partner, Chris Hines, John Kerry's stepson. Both in business with China, both fathers soft on China. And so another piece of the puzzle falls into place. Essentially, the Chinese government was funding a business it co-owned with two of America's most powerful Democrat political families. So while Biden and Hines sold out America to make a quick buck, their dads were serving as vice president and secretary of state, respectively. But perhaps the single greatest abuser of our country's trust lies in the hands of Bill and Hillary Clinton. You remember, late 90s, they established a nonprofit organization aptly named the Clinton Foundation. For years, businesses and foreign nationals funneled money into the organization with some vague goals to help others, and perhaps they did do some good. But what really happened is that when Hillary Clinton became Secretary of State, Fox reports, at least 181 companies, individuals, and foreign governments that had given to the Clinton Foundation also lobbied the State Department when Crooked ran the place. 181 companies. That's a lot of IOUs from the Clintons. I wonder if she ever paid those favors back. We're just asking questions. According to Peter Schweizer's book, Clinton Cash, in 2000, Bill and Hillary Clinton owed millions of dollars in legal debt. Since then, they've earned $131 million. I guess selling out America is a big money business. The big guy, Ketchup, Paulie P., the Gavel, Little Chuckies, all of them wealthy, well-connected, and untouchable.
It's not personal, son. It's strictly business.
For these 5 leading Democrat families, the money's never enough. And so they'll keep selling out America as long as there's a buyer.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.